I couldn't believe what I was about to uncover, and it all started with a simple phone call. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind where nothing seems out of the ordinary. I was in my tiny studio apartment, nursing a cup of instant coffee and wondering how I would scrape together next month's rent. My phone rang, and I almost ignored it until I saw the name, Robert Adams, my grandfather's lawyer. "Mr. Fisher? This is Robert Adams from Adams & Associates. I'm calling about your grandfather's estate." I froze. My grandfather? William Pfizer? I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since college, not since the family disagreements that tore us apart. "You're listed as his sole heir," he continued. "He passed last week. He left you his apartment building." I nearly dropped the phone. A building? In my wildest dreams, I had never imagined something like this. My grandfather had been a shrewd businessman, meticulous and proud, but distant. Our family feud had left a cold chasm between us, and yet suddenly a property that had been his legacy for decades was mine. 2 days later, I stood in front of a 4-story brick building in Riverside District, elegant and well-kept, the kind of property even I, with zero experience in real estate, could recognize as valuable. The sun reflected off the bay windows, highlighting the manicured shrubs lining the walkway. This wasn't just any building, it was a crown jewel. "Mr. Fisher?" I turned to see a woman in her 50s, clipboard in hand, looking slightly frazzled. "I'm Linda Benson, the property manager. I've been overseeing this building for your grandfather." I nodded, unsure how to even respond. "I don't know anything about managing property," I admitted. "That's okay," she said, a faint smile breaking through her worry. "But there's one thing you need to know immediately. There's a tenant in the penthouse, 4B. Her name is Paula Hendris. She hasn't paid rent in 30 years. I blinked, incredulous. 30 years? She nodded gravely. "Your grandfather always refused to discuss it. There's no lease, no documentation, nothing. I've been trying to manage it as best I could, but she's unique." I felt my stomach tighten. $1 million in lost revenue. That's what she calculated. This woman had been living rent-free while the building's other tenants faithfully paid, all while my family missed out on money we could have desperately used. "Where is she now?" I asked, anger and curiosity mixing. Her eyes softened. "In her apartment. But I should warn you, your grandfather insisted she never be harassed. He protected her fiercely." I clenched my fists. "He's dead. I don't have $1 million loan to cover my mistakes. I need answers, Linda. I'm going to talk to her." The stairwell smelled faintly of aged wood and cleaning products as I climbed to the 4th floor. Apartment 4B had an oak door, polished brass nameplate, P. Hendris. I knocked. "Just a moment," a calm, cultured voice answered. The door opened to reveal a woman who looked to be in her mid-70s. Silver hair pulled into an elegant bun, blue eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, and a demeanor that commanded respect without demanding it. "You must be Carter," she said, studying me with a curious tilt of her head. "You look just like your grandfather at your age." "Miss Hendris, we need to talk about your rent," I began, trying to assert authority. "Of course," she said, motioning me inside. "Let's sit." The apartment was breathtaking, not extravagant, but elegant, filled with books, antiques, and the quiet dignity of someone who had cultivated a lifetime of taste rather than wealth. Paula poured tea as if this was a social call rather than a confrontation.
"I've inherited the building," I said, trying to steady my voice. "And I just found out you haven't paid rent in 30 years. I need you to either start paying market rate or vacate immediately." Paula leaned back in her chair, calm as a lake at dawn. "I understand your frustration, Carter, but before you make any decisions, there's something I'd like you to do. Go to the basement, find your grandfather's old ledgers, and look for my name. Read them carefully." I frowned. "Why my grandfather's ledgers? What does my name have to do with this?" Paula smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Because 30 years ago, your grandfather and I had an arrangement, one that when you see it, will explain everything. It might even change how you see the past." I left her apartment bewildered, a knot of curiosity and suspicion tightening in my chest. The basement was a maze of boxes and filing cabinets, the air thick with dust and age. Hours passed as I sifted through the ledgers, finally landing on entries from July 1993. Emergency loan from P. Hendris, $250,000, interest-free, no repayment schedule, no collateral. I flipped further, another loan, $150,000, final installment, $100,000, a total of $500,000. My grandfather's business, his livelihood, his reputation had been saved by Paula Hendris. And the condition? Lifetime residence in apartment 4B, no rent ever required. I sank into a dusty chair, the magnitude of it all hitting me. $500,000, interest-free, no repayment, and my family's fortune preserved. But why? How had she known? What had compelled her to do something so unprecedented? The ledgers told a story of near collapse, lawsuits, bank foreclosures, clients defaulting. The entries painted a vivid picture of a man on the brink and Paula, seemingly out of nowhere, stepping in. And then, tucked behind the ledgers, a manila folder labeled P. Hendris Private. Legal documents, photocopies of agreements, notes in my grandfather's handwriting. Paula Hendris hadn't just saved a failing business. She had made a calculated, selfless investment that ensured the survival of my family's legacy. The apartment I had once sought to claim as a source of revenue had been her way of protecting the people she cared about, and she had never asked for recognition or repayment.
I had uncovered the truth, but I still didn't fully understand the depth of what she had done until I returned to her apartment. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. I climbed the stairs to the 4th floor again, my mind buzzing with what I had found in the ledgers. The anger I had felt that morning was gone, replaced by a mix of awe and disbelief. When Paula opened the door, she gave me a calm, knowing smile. "You found them," she said simply. "Yes," I whispered, still absorbing it all. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry, Paula." "Come in, Carter. I think it's time we had a proper conversation." Her apartment felt warmer this time, as if her presence alone radiated a quiet strength. We sat, and she poured tea with the ease of someone who had anticipated this moment. "You saved my grandfather's business," I said, breaking the silence. "I made an investment," she corrected gently. "One that paid off, yes, but it wasn't just about money. It was about integrity, about seeing value in someone who others had written off." "But $500,000, and you never asked for repayment?" Paula's blue eyes met mine, calm and steady. "I could have taken any apartment, any city property, but I wanted a home, a place where I belonged. And your grandfather, he deserved a chance when no one else would give it." She told me about her life back then. A successful Wall Street banker, wealthy beyond measure, but profoundly lonely. Helping my grandfather gave her purpose and connection, something money alone could never buy. "And the apartment?" I asked, still trying to grasp it all. "It was the trade," she said firmly. "My money for a home. No repayment, no interest, just a place where I could belong and contribute to a community. That's all I ever wanted." I felt a lump in my throat. All my assumptions about freeloaders, lost revenue, and mismanagement had been shattered. This wasn't just a tenant. This was a woman who had quietly, strategically, and generously ensured the survival of my family, and all without fanfare. Over the next hour, Paula shared stories I never imagined. How she had quietly helped other tenants over the years, paying medical bills for Mrs. Perry in 2A, covering rent for a family in 1B when the father lost his job, funding college tuition for a teenager in 3A. Every act was discreet, thoughtful, and powerful. "You've been taking care of everyone," I said, amazed. "This building has been taking care of me. It was only fair to return the favor." I realized then that my grandfather had not just been a businessman, he had been a man who understood the human side of wealth just as Paula did. I had inherited not just bricks and mortar, but a philosophy that money was only part of the picture. Integrity, kindness, and community mattered more. I spent the next few weeks learning everything I could about managing the building. Under Paula's guidance, I began to see the subtle balance between financial stability and compassion. We made repairs, supported tenants, and ensured that the building wasn't just profitable, but a home for everyone inside it. One day, I found a folder labeled P. Hendris Ongoing. Inside were records showing that Paula had been quietly funding major improvements, half of a new roof in 1998, the entire elevator modernization in 2005, a heating system upgrade in 2010. She hadn't just saved the building once, she had sustained it for decades. When I confronted her, she shrugged. "It's my home, Carter. When you love your home, you take care of it." "But hundreds of thousands of dollars," I asked. "Every penny was worth it," she said with a small smile. "And I've lived here in comfort for 30 years. That's all I needed." Years later, when a development company offered $15 million to buy the property, I expected Paula to be heartbroken, but instead she smiled. "Congratulations, Carter. That's a life-changing offer. But this building isn't just an investment, it's a community. I'm not leaving it." Her words hit me hard. My grandfather would have been proud. Paula's philosophy, her compassion, her foresight and generosity had created something far more valuable than money. She had shown me that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the lives we touch, the trust we honor, and the communities we nurture. Paula and I became partners in every sense that mattered. Her financial acumen and my grandfather's lessons in compassion combined to create a management style that was profitable, yet humane. We helped tenants, supported families, and maintained a building that was more than just property. It was a home, a safe harbor in a busy, often impersonal city. On the 3rd anniversary of inheriting the building, we hosted a party for the tenants. I watched families I'd come to know and love, and I saw the impact of Paula's quiet generosity. Teenagers she had helped were now in college. Families she had supported were thriving. And through it all, I realized that I had inherited something far more precious than real estate. I had inherited a legacy of kindness, a lesson in humanity, a reminder that the most important investments we make are not in dollars or property, but in people. The woman I once planned to evict had become my mentor, my advisor, my friend, and in many ways, my family. Each month when I didn't charge her rent, I was reminded that some debts can never be repaid. They can only be honored through how we live, how we act, and how we choose to continue the generosity of those who came before us. Paula Hendris had saved more than my grandfather's business. She had saved a family, a community, and ultimately, me. and I would honor that lesson for the rest of my life. Some debts aren't measured in dollars. They're measured in love, trust, and the lives we touch. The building wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who called it home. And that, more than any fortune, was worth everything.